Going on everyone? This is our second walkthrough of the 1.2 1.4X. We've had a couple little updates along the way. It's been about a year since the original video, so we thought we'd just start completely again and go through the entire tent. When you receive the tent, we'll just run through everything that's included. We get our ladder, obviously, which comes in our ladder bag, our spring steel rods, which we'll open up soon, our mounting kit. We've got our 200 or 230 watt roam gear solar panel. So if you have the 1.4X tent, which is the 1450 wide, you'll receive the 230 watt panel. If you have the 1.2X, the 1300 wide tent, you'll get the 200 watt panel. First things first, mounting kit is inside the ladder bag. So pretty common one that catches a few young players out. It is definitely in your ladder box. So open the ladder box up, inside the ladder bag is your mounting kit. So what I'll do now is I'll pull these roof bars off, pull the panel off, and we'll run through how we got to this complete situation here. Alrighty, so I've gone ahead and taken this roof rack bracket off so we can have a look how these mount. There's a couple ways you can do it. The way we've done it here is on the lower setting. I personally think it just looks a bit better than having that rack on top. But if you do need a bit of extra height, you can actually bolt that bracket on top. What I mean by that is we can bolt it like this, or bolt it like that. So we're going to do it this way. What we need to do is use our little channel nuts here. They go in like that, line them up, and then use our little Allen head bolts to go in like so. Yeah, they're moderately tight, I don't have to go all the way. And then from there, you can add them to the side of the tent. These little channel nuts I just showed you, they're the ones that go in the side of the tent. They're the exact same ones that go in these roof bars here. So you can actually just put them through this little keyway if you want to, but I just slid them in from the end, same. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and slide them into the side of the tent, like that. And then line them up where we want this roof bar. So where I want them is around here. And then we can go ahead and put these Allen head bolts in like that. And tighten that up. So it's a good idea to put a bit of Loctite on these. Just, you know, if you're going on a lot of corrugations and whatnot, you want these to not come undone, or you'll delete the person behind you at some point. So get those all cranked up like that. Next, for the solar panel, much the same, you use the slide nuts. These ones are actually already installed in the tent because the solar panel brackets come connected to the tent already. So those distances are already set. For the solar panel bracket, we want to use our same Allen head bolts and then use our nylox. We want nylox on these because we don't want to use the channel nuts because these are hard ones to get to if you ever need to retighten them, so use the nylock. So nylock goes underneath, then drop your Allen head through and tighten it up. I won't bore you with doing that, but you'll get the idea. From there, you'll notice that it's actually a slotted bracket on the back, and the reason there's a slotted bracket there, for any reason, if in manufacturing this angle was, you know, a couple degrees out, we don't want to be locked in with fixed holes, so we have a slot there just so we've got a bit of movement. And we know that the 1.4X is 1450 wide, so we're going to use our tape measure and make sure we've got our 1450 there. From there, we'll turn the panel over and get that all bolted down. On the back here, before I flip it over actually, we do have all the specs of your panel. So either take a photo of that or peel the sticker off and stick it on your forehead so you can look at it in the mirror at night and remember all your solar panel specs. Just kidding. So on the back, we've got MC4 connectors. These are an automotive connector, pretty standard practice for solar panels. All that means is there's actually a waterproof connector because there's an O-ring. If this is stressing you out and giving you anxiety because you don't know what the bloody hell this is, you can actually go to BCF and buy an MC4 to Anderson plug adapter, and they come in like 3 meter-ish leads, and that'll get you back to your Anderson plug that you all know and love. If you don't want to do that and you've got a bunch of Anderson plugs rolling around the shed, you can actually just chop this MC4 connector off or undo it, and then strip the wire and then put your Anderson plug on there, and then you won't have MC4s, you can just do Anderson to Anderson. Last thing to mention, there was one fella once upon a time that actually connected these together, and what that'll do is self-destruct your tent. No, in all seriousness, you will fry your panel if you connect these together. You don't want to connect positive and negative and then have power going into the panel. It's not a good time. So if you're doing this at a later date, or you chop these off and do Andersons or anything like that, just tape up the connections or put some like stoppers on there to make sure that you're not going to arc these out on the car or on the tent or in together or anything like that. So just a tip there. All right, so we've got all this bolted on now. I've just put them at the back here. This is a good orientation if you want to put some max tracks here or whatnot. You can actually put the solar panel a little bit further this way or all the way at the back, and you can do one roof rack on either side, which is pretty handy if you run surfboards or paddleboards, stuff like that across the top. These are actually higher than the panel, so you won't actually interfere with it. And if you needed a bit more height, like I said before, you can actually put that roof rack on top of the bracket. There is the ability to run 2 solar panels as well, so if you want to power a small city, you can also do that. That'll be a total of 400 or 460 watts. With those second panel brackets, they're not the logo brackets like this, otherwise you're going to end up with like logos everywhere. So we've actually just got some standard little L brackets similar to this, just a bit lower, that you can bolt the other secondary panel to, and then you just tee the panels up on the roof and you got all the power in the world. We'll go ahead and open this thing up. As you can see, there's 2 latches at the back, and then we've also got 2 latches at the front. So generally you'd probably stand on your side step or something to get these ones. They're pretty easy, and that's all you have to do in relation to the front of the tent here. You don't have to do any extra bits and pieces. As you'll see, as we open the tent, everything at the front here with that X hinge, it all happens from lifting at the back, so you don't have to go and set anything up there. As we come up, that hinge undoes itself like that. So that's all essentially done. From there, we put this bungee cord. You can put it here or here. I like putting it in the truck, that's my little spot for it, but you can put it wherever you like. And that's it. You also have these shoe bags. I've already got them installed here, but they'll be in the tent. So they just go on a sail track, in the sail track like that. They've also got hooks, so if you want to actually hook them on to the tent, you can do that as well, put one on either side. These are pretty handy if you go up the ladder, you got dirty shoes or whatever, you can just chuck them up in here. And they've got like your midgie mesh down the bottom, so if your shoes are wet, then all the water's going to drain out. You've got little pockets here, so you might want to put, if you've got kids or something, put some nappies in here, or some new nappies in case you've got to change baby up there or whatnot. Speaking from experience, it is quite handy to have lots of pockets. From there, we'll run through this front pole, which is, you're still going to be doing all of this from the back of the tent. So this pole here, hopefully we've got enough light in here. Might turn my torch on my phone just to show you. I'll turn this brightness up. So when we're locking this front pole in, we want to make sure that this telescopic pole is all the way down. We don't want to try lock it in with this extended, or it's going to get caught on this canvas and it's a bit tricky. So when we lock this in, you'll hear it, to go back a bit, you'll hear it click. And then you're like, oh, beauty, that's locked in. Think again, it's not locked in. What we have to do is use our hand here and apply a little bit more pressure down the bottom, and then you'll see it lock in like that. And now if wind gets onto this front little part of the tent here, it's not going to blow back. So we'll do the same on the other side. Put this mattress back so you can see. Again, this is all the way down, and then you just want to use your hand and a little bit of pressure. Like if you put too much pressure on it, you're going to bend this pole. You don't need a lot, but just a little bit like that. From there, what I would generally do to do this next part, I would get up my ladder, and I'll just turn around like this, sort of sit on the back of the tent, and then you can just shimmy this pole up, just one side at a time. Again, not putting a whole lot of pressure there until we're, pretty taut, and then we lock either side in, like that. That's pretty well it, and we'll move on to putting this rain fly up. So you've got your bag of spring steels here. They come in a nice little bag. Normally just keep those in the tent. So these are your spring steel rods. These are all the exact same length. The bottom here has a little flattened off part so they don't twist around in the pole receiver down there. From there, the easiest way to do this is to put the bottom in first. So we need to make sure we're going through both holes here, and that flat part of the pole actually goes into the flat hole there. And now from there we just go up and pop those in. So I'll make my way around and put all these in, and we'll jump inside the tent and we'll run through everything we need to know inside the tent, how everything works. Do these have rain covers and everything like that? Alrighty, we'll have a bit of a chat about what's going on inside the tent here. This little elastic part is just to help, keep the canvas away from the hinges as it comes down. Although not totally necessary, because we do have this bungee cord on the outside, it is good just to have a little bit more of a tension there. So in the tent, feature that is really nice in here is this little window at the back, which does zip up. So if it's raining and it's it's a fair bit of sideways rain, you can actually close that up. But it means you get a bit of cross ventilations in the tent. And because of the X-hinge arrangement here, generally a tent like a wedge tail sort of clamshell tent will come down to a point here. So you really only ever sleep with pillows at the front end. So that means every time you climb in, you actually have to do a 180 and then, put your head back there. Whereas with this style of tent, you can set all your pillows up down here. You're going to get that breeze coming through, and you don't have to turn around every time you get inside. So you can sleep both ways. The doors on this tent are also a little bit bigger as well compared to the standard clamshell. Similar to the Plus, but to our original clamshell, they are just like that a little bit bigger, so you get a heap of ventilation. We've got our little storage pockets in here, so water bottles, stuff like that, keys. You'd be amazed how many you actually use. We've got our iPad pocket up here, which is handy. You can watch Netflix or whatever at night. This tent has around about 30% more room inside. So with that X hinge here at the back and this front pole, you do also pick up another window here, which is really cool. So you're not actually taking up a bigger platform on your roof. You've still got your 2.1 by 1450 or 1300, but you are actually maximizing how much room you get in the tent. So with that bar here, like your normal clamshell would finish, if you draw a line down here by this window, so you don't get this extra area. So when you're inside this thing, you really notice that you do get a whole lot more ventilation and room inside. The light is on a Velcro strip, so you can actually move it to the sides if you didn't want it down there. It's a dimmable light as well, so it's like a warm at the moment, but you can dim it right down. You can also change it to this amber color, because I know you guys, you love amber. Everyone, yeah, they love it. So we put that in there for everyone. A bit of feedback that everyone wanted, so we've listened and put that in there. I've actually just got this attached to a power bank at the moment because I don't have a dual battery system in my showroom. So you can power them off a power bank, or this doubles up as a torch, pretty handy. You've got your 12 volt sockets back here, so you've got USB ports and cigarette sockets. So hot nights you can run your fans off the cigarette sockets, charge your phone and whatnot, and then also obviously plug the light into here. The mattress is a 5.5 centimetre, my light's turned off, hang on a sec, just bear with me, might be going flat. It's a 5.5 centimetre memory foam mattress. So normally we do the high density foam, but this one, because we've gone a little bit slimmer, because it is a very slim profile tent, it's only 150 mil. So we've stuck to the 5.5 centimetre mattress, and then also we've got the condensation mat underneath. Very important for heat transfer through the mattress. If you've got bodies sleeping in here, you've got cold aluminium underneath, you do need to have that layer that stops the heat transfer through to the base, and that's when you get a condensated aluminium base. Bedding in this tent, you can get a little bit in here. So when it's closed, you've got, imagine the roof comes down, it finishes about here. So you've got another 5.5 centimeters inside for internal bedding. You're realistically not going to get big pillows in this one, If you've got little travel pillows, you might get them in the middle, but we do recommend this model is to not have pillows in it. If you are after something where you can get all your pillows in it, that's what we've got the plus version for. It's a higher shell. So this one here, you could do like a 25mm topper. If you cut it all to size, I'd recommend, sort of leaving it 20mm short from the outside, being away from these poles, just your little eggshell sort of topper. Or you can get, like a couple of big dooners in here, or just like a topper and one sleeping bag sort of in the middle. You'll know, like when you shut it and it's not sealed in the middle, you've got way too much in it. But if you just stick to the sheets, blanket, and a sleeping bag, or topper and one sleeping bag, then you'll have no dramas. So on the outside of the tent, like all our tents, they're actually pretty similar measurements. We've brought this rainfly the entire way out. That's why we use 4 poles instead of 2. We just found that if you only have 2 poles, you can only really get this rainfly to here, which kind of makes that side window irrelevant if you ever want to open it in the rain. I know we were camping recently, and in the morning it was still really hot, so it was actually quite nice to be able to keep that window open and then this window as well. With this one here, it actually canvases off, so if it is really bad rain, you can actually put that all the way down, and then if it's nice and sunny, you just sort of roll it up. I'll roll that up quickly, explain one more thing on this one. This mesh here, so all our mesh is midgie proof. If you're up in the Northern Territory or even over at Fraser or Inskip, something like that, midgies can get pretty bad, so it is important we do have midgie proof screen everywhere, which we do. This is actually an upgraded screen to what we've previously used. We've found it just a bit more hard wearing and looks quite premium, and it is quite premium. This window here actually opens up. And the reason we did that is if it's like you get a fair bit of rain at night and you're trying to put this little canvas flap down, the only way you could do it is if you put your head out into the rain and then sort of, muffled around like this trying to get to it. And if it's the middle of the night, you're half asleep, it's not a good time. Whereas if you do it like that and make a zip here, you can actually just get it from the inside. You don't have to leave the tent. So that's a nice little feature we put on there. You'll notice that this is actually reflective. So if you've hit the source way too hard and you're lost out in the toilets in the middle of the night or in the wilderness and you can't find your tent, we've actually installed this homing beacon, reflective light, so you can shine your torch around and find home. That's the reason. On the inside, one last thing to mention is the roof has a 20mm insulated honeycomb panel. That means there is like fabric in there as well. It just means like being a black shell, when the sun hits it in the morning, you're not going to get all that heat transfer through. There is actually an air pocket in there. Being a 20mm roof, you can actually mount a fan in there as well. So if you need the exact screws to get there, a 15mm button head, just shoot us a message and we'll send you the exact ones you can mount, like your Sirocco fans or whatnot in there. Otherwise, just those little like pedestal ones just sitting at the end of your bed. Since you've got that X hinge, you've got a bit more room in here, you can just sort of sit them back there and point it back at you. They're pretty handy. You'll notice that everything on the tent it's all modular, so everything here is all just on the same slide nuts that we demonstrated before with the roof racks. That's how everything is mounted to this tent. That means that if you ever break your gas strut, gets hung up or something, or you need to regas these things, you don't have to drill anything out, because some manufacturers actually drill all these gas struts to the shell, it's pretty annoying. Like if you ever did need a new gas strut or something, you'd have to break the tools out and try and get drills up in places. So we just make sure with all the tents that everything's modular, all on Allen keys and slide nuts, which makes things easy. The canvas is also on a sail track. So if you ever ripped a door or you ripped anything or needed a new canvas or something like that, because stuff does happen, zips are zips. One day you might break one or something. There's a zipper that runs around the perimeter of the roof, and this is for all of our tents, not just this model in particular. But if you haven't seen the other videos, I think it's worth mentioning. You can actually unzip the entirety of the canvas insert, and it all just sort of twists around in a circle, and you can pull the whole canvas out, replace a new one. It's like this, this sort of big. We've got a video on how to do it if you ever needed it. Not that you should, but it's always good to know that you're spending close to $4,000 on a tent. If anything ever happens, you bugger a zip or something, you can actually replace that part. with that said, I reckon we can go ahead and pack this thing down. So pretty much the exact same way that we set it up. We'll pull all these out. Oh, don't take that tin out. So that little bungee cord on the inside, I'm not even going to hook that up because I just want to demonstrate how easily this tent in particular packs down. So same deal as how we set this front pole up, we just want to do it in reverse. So that being said, you want to undo these little, well, I guess you'd call them like a little latch. Bring this all the way down before we disengage this button. So now that that's down, let's grab my torch again. You can actually push that button in like that. Now that's unlocked. And then same on this side. Same on this side here. So you just want a little bit of pressure back. So you can see I'm only using 2 fingers here, like it's not a whole lot of pressure. And this will fold down like this. And you'd keep these spring steels in your bag here so we're not going to cause any sort of rubbing while in transit, or put your blanket over it or something. And from there, we just sort of tuck that in a bit, bring this bungee cord up. Just like that. And then if you imagine you're standing back on your ladder, down a bit, you want to be nice and stable. You've got a fair bit of length here to actually pull this shell down. So that morning you do this, just make sure you've eaten all your wheat bix, because these gas struts do have a bit of bunty in them, but they need to support all your gear up there in the solar panel. So you're going to pull that down nice and square, and you can kind of just get it to that balance point where it'll stay there, and that's the part where you can sort of pop around and karate chop that in like that. So this tent's got a really wide base, so it does pack in really nice. And from there, good practice is just to sort of stand back here, and I'll just sight this seal and make sure it's all going to get a nice seal on that base. You don't want to be driving around and you've got your rain fly hanging out. Even though it's a polyethylene canvas and it won't wick really quickly, over time, like it'll end up fading and you might get water behind the seal. So you just want to make sure that's all tucked in. Then we can latch it all up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure we got that little strap in there. And that's that done. So we can move on to talking about this ladder a little bit. So these are a 2.3 meter ladder. They're pretty bloody tall, so we can get them in a 2.6, but the tent comes with a 2.3. So if you ever needed, you got like an Iveco truck or a ridiculously high car, you can actually get a bigger one, but the 2.3 gets us out of trouble with. We've got relatively high vehicles and they do the job. On the ladder, we've got this 15-degree extrusion on top. So a normal rooftop tent ladder will look like this, and it's quite a thin sort of step. And once you put it on that 15-degree sort of pitch, it does hurt the balls in front of your feet when you stand on that. So putting that little 15-degree extrusion on there just helps, you know, a bit more support. It feels sturdier and it doesn't hurt your feet. So if you ever climb it in thongs or barefoot, it's not gonna hurt. Alrighty, we'll talk about mounting the tent now. So if you're at this point in the video and you've been struggling to mount the tent and you've landed here, you're probably 6 beers deep and your missus is yelling at you. So let's just run through how to do this properly and settle all the debates. This is the M8 bolt that goes into this little slide extrusion here. So what that does is go into the mounting rail on the bottom of the tent. So it's important we use the slide plate. We don't want to be putting the bolt in without it, because it won't hold in there and you'll have a tent delete pretty bloody quickly. So go ahead and put that in there. And we're just going to imagine that this is a crossbar and your canopy, roof rack, anything like that. So you've got 8 of these bolts, 8 nylock nuts, 8 washers, and you've got these clamps. So what we're doing is essentially putting these bolts in, and then this will clamp around your rack, like I was saying, and then you do them up. You need to have these at a minimum of 850 millimeters apart, center to center. So you imagine these trestles here are your roof racks or load bars, canopy points, whatnot. You want to have these at a minimum of 850 millimeters apart, center to center, and a maximum of 1600 millimeters apart, center to center. And the max overhang we can have is 500 millimeters unsupported. So what I mean by that, if we were to mount to that trestle there and that trestle there, and this was the last point of contact of the tent, then we can't have this distance over 500 millimeters. So that's not 1600 millimeters from the last clamp, it's 1600 millimeters unsupported. So if you're at 1200 millimeters spacing and you do have support, like you got a fiberglass canopy or something, and you got your 1200 mounting points, and you've got a rack on top of your other roof for the tent to span on, and that tent is supported on there, that's all good. I'm just talking about if you've only got those points there and then you got 500 mil unsupported, then that's no good. We have to have a chat about a different solution for you. If you need any more advice on that, everyone's setup's pretty different. You can just shoot us an email and we'll put a bit of a plan together on how to mount it to your vehicle. Specifically, we've done a lot in our time, so I'm sure we've seen a similar setup, or we can come up with a bit of a game plan for you. Next thing we'll talk about is awnings. So this tent in particular, this is the base, right? So it's a pretty slim tent. This is too slim in our opinion to mount an awning off. Like, we've done a fair bit of R&D, we've tried to cantilever brackets back underneath, but we just found being such a slim base is just not enough for the awning to attach onto. So what we do, we've got our awning bracket like this, and this is a height adjustable bracket. We run through it in our awning installation video. So that essentially locks in like that and goes up and down. What you need to do is, if you imagine that's your crossbar, you need to bolt this awning bracket down, and you can actually put it right up against the tent. So even if you look through all our socials posts, it'll look like the awning's always mounted to the tent, but for this tent in particular, this is how it's always done. The awning bracket gets bolted down first, right up against the tent, so as if it is mounted to it. And this big stainless steel bracket, it's 380 mil long, is actually fully supported on the same crossbar that the tent is. Then we grab our faceplate here and bolt that to the side. And the advantage of that is you can actually choose any height that you want on the awning bracket. Whereas if you do the awning bracket that's bolted to the tent, you're stuck at that one height that we give you. So if you use this bracket, you've got all these sort of holes here you can use. You can go up, down, get it wherever you like. And it's a way stronger solution than trying to bolt to this side of the tent. So these come with the awning. You don't have to buy anything additional. So what we give you will work with your setup. So as long as you've got one mounting point back here for the tent, then the awning can also bolt to that as well. Again, if you need to go over that with your specific setup, very happy to do so. But this will work for 99% of people's setups, and it is a really good way to install. If you bolt the awning to beside the tent, these little rainfly receivers are going to get in the way. So you imagine you've got your awning connected to your tent like so. This is going to foul. So what we've actually done, we've got a pretty simple solution here. And this is just like a rainfly receiver riser plate. So that actually you remove this entirely, reuse the slide nuts that are already in there, and that bolts directly to the tent. And that offset is 105 millimeters, enough to get over the awning. When you bolt these on, these are directional, so you just want to pay attention to which way this little flat plate actually goes in there, and make sure you're putting this the exact same way. When this gets bolted to the tent, obviously this seal is proud of the side of the tent, so we give you some spaces, just like that. So 2 spaces will go behind, like so. And then we'll use we've got 16 mil bolts that'll come with it. So they'll go in, and that'll bolt to the tent like that. So now we're actually gonna miss that seal completely. So as it comes down, we're not gonna grab it and damage it or anything like that. So that's, yeah, a fair bit of spacing there to get off the tent. Last thing we're going to talk about on this one, because when we mount this, the spring steel pole has actually, the location's moved 105 millimeters up center to center. Because it's moved up, our original pole is actually going to be too long now. So what we have to do is we just have to get like a grinder cutting disc and just cut this pole on the top side of this offset So this little offset here is a really good indicator as where we need to cut it. We've done all the testing, and if you cut it right there, that actually resets the pole to the correct height. So make sure you do that. It's not critical if you don't have anything to cut it, like to cut it with you at the time, you can do it later. But all it means is if you connect this pole and it's in that riser and it's too high, you're just going to end up with a pole that's too long and your rain flow might just be on a bit of an angle. So not the end of the world, but you know, put that in the memory bank when you get around to it, just trim that pole there. We mentioned before that there's power on the inside of the tent. So we run the positive and negative already through the base with a nice grommet and hard mount this Anderson plug to the bottom. We've got an Anderson plug on the bottom and MC4s on the solar panel. So it's literally impossible from factory to plug the solar panel directly into here. You don't want to be doing that. The solar panel has to go directly to the batteries through like a DC-DC or a solar controller. The panel is unregulated, and then that'll charge your dual battery. From the dual battery, we run a positive and negative up to the bottom of the tent, and that'll power the inside, these little power sockets in here. It's always a good idea to, at your power distribution, like at your battery, just put a 10 amp inline fuse between the battery and the tent. It's always just good practice to do that. There is also a 10 amp glass fuse already inside this panel as well. So one day if you ever don't have power, it's just a good spot to check. So fuse there and then also fuse your battery connection and you should be sweet. Awesome, thank you for watching. All in all, a really sleek tent, 150mm high. This one looks stunning on top of any car. We've got two sizes, so your 1450, your 1300. If you're a bit concerned how it's going to look on your car, reach out. We've probably got a whole bunch of photos and comparisons. We can look how they look on canopies, wagons, everything like that. But yeah, like I said, all the solar panel comes with it, the roof racks, pretty much everything you'll ever need. It's a really sleek tent. You'll love it. If you've got any questions, let us know. We'll help you out.